Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we take the material you share with us, notes, articles, research, you name it, and we really dig in to find the most fascinating insights. We try to turn that complex information into a clear, hopefully engaging conversation, basically giving you a shortcut to getting up to speed. Today, we're plunging into, well, a real classic of world literature. We're using the detailed notes you've provided on a really critical section of the story.
Yeah.
And it's quite a dramatic turn. Lots of unexpected human reactions, some really intense personal struggles going on.
That's right. We're looking at the events that unfold literally right after the death of a major character, Father Zosima. We'll explore how this death impacts everyone around him. And at the same time, we're following another key character who's wrestling with some very pressing practical problems, alongside some pretty deep romantic entanglements. It's a lot happening at once.
Yeah, it sounds packed. So we'll unpack the complex reactions to Father Zosima's passing, the surprising, maybe even raw human nature that gets revealed in what's supposed to be a holy place. Then there's this really pivotal, revealing encounter involving Alyosha and Grushenka, very important, and Alyosha's subsequent emotional, spiritual experience, that seems crucial too. And then finally, we'll follow Dimitri on what sounds like a pretty desperate mission.
It really is a section rich in character development, and the plot definitely moves forward. It shows us all these different facets of, faith, doubt, love, certainly desperation, and maybe self-deception too.
Okay, so let's take a deep breath then and dive right into this next chapter, guided by the material you shared. All right, let's start with the first big event, the immediate aftermath of Father Zosima's death. Now, from the material, it's clear he wasn't just seen as, like, a respected elder priest. He was really revered, wasn't he? Seen as a genuinely saintly figure by pretty much everyone.
Oh, absolutely. Hugely revered. And Alyosha, who had this deep connection with him, sensed the end was near and had actually returned to the monastery just before Zosima passed.
So the stage is set for, well, something significant. And this reverence, this belief in his holiness, it created a very specific kind of expectation, didn't it?
It really did. It wasn't just about mourning. There was this widespread belief, especially among the monks, that because Zosima was so incredibly holy, his actual physical body would defy nature after death.
Divine nature. How so? Like physically?
Exactly. Physically. The specific expectation, the one highlighted in the notes, was that his body wouldn't decay in the normal way. And crucially, it wouldn't produce the smell, the smell associated with decomposition.
Wow. So they were literally expecting a physical miracle. The absence of decay, the absence of that smell would be the proof, the sign of his immense holiness, confirming his sainthood.
Precisely. It wasn't just a vague hope. It was a firm expectation. And the notes even mentioned they took steps, almost like they were trying to manage the situation or protect the expectation.
How so?
Well, it says the windows in the hall where his body was laid out were kept closed. Only the main door was open.
Keeping the windows closed. That feels like they were trying to contain the air.
Yeah.
Maybe hoping to prolong the wait for the miracle, or maybe just preserve the sanctity of the space.
Could be a bit of both. Definitely suggests an effort to control the environment, maybe give the miracle the best chance, or perhaps more cynically, just delay confronting the possibility that it wouldn't happen. It shows how invested they were.
But, well, reality often has other plans, doesn't it? Despite the hopes, the closed windows, the hushed waiting, the inevitable happens. The body begins to decay. The smell starts to emerge.
And this is where things get really interesting and quite revealing about human nature, especially within this supposedly holy community. The failure of this expected miracle, the simple presence of the smell, it triggers a huge reaction. It doesn't lead to quiet reflection, Instead, it immediately exposes these deep pre-existing divisions among the monks.
So this monastery, this place meant for spiritual focus, maybe harmony, suddenly becomes a stage for something much more, well, earthly.
Yeah.
Almost political.
You could say that, exactly. The notes point out that not all the monks actually liked Father Zosima, or at least weren't fans. There was a group, maybe not a majority, but certainly vocal, who felt some resentment or jealousy towards him.
And there was influence and the respect people had for him, even in a monastery.
It seems so. It's a stark reminder, isn't it? That even in places dedicated to transcending worldly stuff, those very human emotions, jealousy, resentment, they can absolutely persist. They can even fester.
In this group, they see the smell as their chance.
They absolutely seize on it. They use the presence of the smell as proof, as undeniable evidence that Zosima was not the great saint everyone thought. They use this completely natural biological process to actively undermine his reputation, to attack the belief in his sanctity.
Wow. So they're weaponizing decay, basically.
Effectively, yes. And they don't just whisper about it. They demand the windows be opened. They want to force the reality of the decay, the smell, onto everyone. The notes suggest they're almost like reveling in the disillusionment this causes. It confirms their biases, maybe lets them settle old scores against him in their minds.
That's pretty cynical. It shows how quickly people can turn on someone admired, especially when an expectation isn't met, and particularly if there was already some underlying resentment there. It just shatters any idealized picture of the monastery.
And what's fascinating, as you said, is this conflict isn't about theology or anything high-minded. It's about personal dynamics, jealousy, manipulating a situation. It shows how fragile that perception of sanctity can be when it bumps up against basic biology and, well, human nature.
And while all this drama, this conflict among the monks is unfolding, Alyosha is somewhere else, entirely emotionally speaking.
Completely. He's totally separate from the squabble over miracles and reputation. He's just overcome with his own profound personal grief. He actually
Right.
leaves the hall. He can't stay there with the body, the smell, the arguing.
He's too lost in his own sorrow.
It seems that way. He goes outside into the big monastery grounds, and he's found later just sitting alone near a large stone in a field area. The description is really vivid. He's weeping, deeply troubled, his heart's heavy, tears just streaming down his face.
Oh, that's such a powerful image. This young man, usually is so calm, just completely undone, alone by a rock, while this petty battle rages inside.
It really is. And a head priest finds him, sees his distress. He tries to comfort Alyosha, acknowledging the pain, but also urging acceptance. What is meant to be will be, that sort of thing.
Standard comfort, maybe not quite enough for that level of grief.
Probably not. The priest gently encourages him to come back, saying people are waiting. But that interaction really highlights just how deep Alyosha's connection to Zosima was. It wasn't just a teacher. It was like a father figure, a spiritual guide. The loss hits him at his core, leading to this intense, isolated sorrow.
So right away, we see these two starkly contrasting responses. The public, political, almost petty reaction focused on the failed miracle on the body versus Alyosha's private, deep, overwhelming grief. It sets up these different ways characters are dealing with loss and disappointment. Okay, so that sets the scene at the monastery. But then the focus shifts, and Alyosha gets pulled into a very different kind of situation, doesn't he? This encounter with Rakitin and Grushenka.
Yes, it does. Later that evening, as time has passed, this other monk, Rakitin, finds Alyosha. The notes say he's about the same age, early 20s.
And Rakitin isn't portrayed as your typical devout monk, is he?
Not at all. He's described as sarcastic, someone who seems to enjoy, testing Alyosha, maybe provoking him, challenging his innocence. He's got this cynical, worldly edge that's completely different from Alyosha.
And he uses Alyosha's worry about his brother, Dmitri, to manipulate him, right?
Precisely. Rakitin knows Alyosha is desperate to find Dmitri, worried sick about him. So he spins this story. He claims he knows where Dmitri will be later that night and offers to take Alyosha there.
But it's a setup. The notes call it a lure or a lollipop.
Exactly. It's a lie. Rakitin tells Alyosha they'll meet Grushenka, implying Dmitri will also be there. But the real goal is just to get Alyosha to Grushenka's house. And Alyosha, desperate about Dmitri, probably still reeling from Zosima's death, he agrees. Even though he wasn't particularly looking to see Grushenka right then, Rakitin leads him away from the monastery late at night.
That feels like a really significant step for Alyosha leaving the monastery, entering Grushenka's world. It feels deliberate on Rakitin's part.
Oh, it's absolutely deliberate. Rakitin is trying to expose Alyosha to a world he thinks will challenge him, maybe even corrupt him. They get to Grushenka's house late, and the whole atmosphere is different. Grushenka is described as ready, looking stunning, gorgeous. She welcomes them warmly, even says she was waiting for them.
Waiting. So it sounds like Rakitin's story holds up at first.
For a moment, maybe. But as soon as they sit down, Grushenka starts telling her story, and it becomes immediately clear that her waiting, her focus, wasn't on Dmitri at all.
Her mind was somewhere else entirely.
Completely. She reveals she's totally preoccupied with this army officer she was deeply in love with 5 or 6 years ago. He left her, married someone else, but now, just today, she got a letter from him.
Ah, and the letter changes everything.
Totally. He says he's divorced now and wants her to come to him. That's why she was waiting and ready. She was preparing to leave to go meet this officer. And she tells them straight up, surprisingly directly, I'm not waiting for Dmitri. It just cuts right through Rakitin's lie.
Okay, so she's going to him. Is it love then? Is she going back to him?
Well, the note suggests it's way more complicated than that. She says she is going, but not necessarily for a happy reunion right away. She actually tells them she wants to teach him a lesson.
Oh, lesson. What does that mean?
She wants to make him agonize. She plans to show him she's not the same immature girl he left. She's a proper wise lady now. She wants to use her beauty, her words, to sort of torment him while hiding her own feelings, which are probably still there underneath.
So it's revenge for him leaving her back then.
It seems like a kind of revenge, yeah. Getting back at him now that he needs her. But it's all mixed up with, residual feelings, a desire for power, maybe wanting retribution. It's not just about getting him back. It's about making him suffer like she did, regaining control.
Wow, that's complex. She's capable of deep feelings, but also driven by this need for vindication.
And she's incredibly open about this messy motivation. It's not simple revenge. It's tangled with desire, proving something. It adds so many layers to her. You can't just label her easily.
And then right in the middle of telling this story, she does something really sudden, involving Alyosha directly.
Yes, completely out of the blue, Grushenka jumps up and sits right on Alyosha's lap, just like that. And she starts talking about his face, how innocent it is, how pure, like nothing she's ever seen.
And Alyosha's probably still trying to process Zosima's death, the
Yeah.
monastery chaos, now this.
Exactly. And she says that seeing his pure face makes her see her own sins, her own evil. It's this intense moment of contrast, his purity reflecting her self-perceived flaws.
How does Alyosha even react to that? I mean, someone's suddenly sitting on his lap saying these things.
Well, the notes say he's basically unresponsive, doesn't push her off, doesn't really say anything. Maybe he's still deep in his grief, maybe just in shock, or maybe it's just Alyosha. He's not easily rattled by worldly drama. Grushenka even comments on his indifference.
It really shows his unusual nature, doesn't it? Not easily pulled into these emotional games, even when he's physically right in the middle of one.
And right then, Grushenka just takes complete control and exposes Rakitin publicly.
She calls him out on the lie.
Totally. She just states it plainly. She gave Rakitin money, promised him booze, specifically to bring Alyosha to her, and then, just to rub it in, she dramatically throws money at Rakitin, like payment, confirming he was bought, calling him immoral. It's a complete public takedown.
Ouch. Rakitin can't have liked that.
Not one bit. He's furious, totally humiliated. He lashes out at Grushenka, tries to turn it around by attacking her character. He points out her contradictions, claiming to love Dmitri, making promises to Dmitri's father, now running off to this officer. He's basically asking, what kind of woman are you?
Trying to shift the blame from his own petty actions by questioning her morals.
Exactly. But Grushenka fights back hard. She fires right back at him, questioning his right to judge her, pointing out his hypocrisy. She reminds him brutally, you sold out your friend for what, 25, 30 rubles and a bottle of booze?
She really highlights how pathetic his betrayal was.
And then she elevates herself. She boasts that she is capable of real sacrifice, something he could never understand. She claims she could throw away everything, her clothes, her property, her money, even her beauty, and live on the street if she wanted to. It suggests this deeper core beneath the manipulation, someone capable of radical action, unlike Rakitin, who's motivated by petty cash. She insists she doesn't really love her wealth or beauty. She could ditch it all.
It's a powerful claim, setting herself up as someone with real depth against his small-mindedness. The notes even mention she's done this before, taught Katerina a lesson. Now she's doing it to Rakitin. She defends herself fiercely.
And just as you think you've maybe got a handle on her, she pivots again. Rakitin, maybe trying to regain some ground or just change the subject, tells her that Father Zosima has died.
And that news affects her.
It seems to. Her mood changes instantly. She gets off Alyosha's lap, sits back down, expresses sympathy, says she didn't know. There's a moment of silence. It's brief, but it suggests a genuine flicker of something. Maybe connection to the reality of death, even for someone outside her immediate drama. It stops her in her tracks just for a moment.
So she's not just manipulation and revenge. There are these glimpses of something else, too.
Exactly. It keeps her complex, unpredictable. Just then, her maid comes in, the carriage is ready, it's late 10 or 11 p.m. She's leaving for the officer. She gets ready, and Alyosha and Rakitin leave first.
But there's one more interaction as they're walking away.
Yes, a really crucial one. As they're walking away from the house, Grushenka calls out from a window. Specifically to Alyosha, not Rakitin, and she gives him a message for Dmitri.
Ah, the famous 1 hour message.
That's the one. She says, tell Dmitri, Grushenka loved him for 1 hour, a real love for 1 hour, and that 1 hour will outweigh all the happiness of his entire life. She tells Alyosha to make sure Dmitri remembers this, always. It's presented as incredibly significant, suggesting that despite everything, there was this one moment of genuine, deep feeling for Dmitri, and she wants him to know its profound value.
Wow. That's quite a message to leave someone with. Almost a gift, but maybe a burden, too. Like, nothing else will ever compare.
It's definitely powerful and ambiguous, and as they walk away from all that intensity, Rakitin is still going.
Still trying to justify himself to Alyosha.
Yeah, pretty much. He starts bad-mouthing Grushenka, calling her names, trying to diminish her in Alyosha's eyes, probably hoping it makes his own actions look less pathetic, trying to manage what Alyosha must think of him being bought so cheaply.
And Alyosha.
Alyosha is silent, just walking, probably completely overwhelmed, processing Grushenka's behavior, her story, that final message. Rakitin's pettiness. Rakitin just keeps muttering to himself, stewing in his embarrassment.
So Alyosha emerges from that intense, confusing encounter and heads back to the monastery. But his day, his experiences, they're not quite over yet, are they? There's another significant turn, more internal this time.
No, definitely not over. It's like the external chaos leads to an internal climax for him. He gets back to the monastery very late, maybe midnight, 1 a.m. He goes to the hall where Zosima's body was. It's empty of people now. And the windows are open.
So the source of that earlier conflict, the smell, it's been dealt with.
Exactly. Windows open, smell dissipated, the immediate tension is gone. Alyosha finds a spot to sleep among some other junior priests and a head priest. He's restless at first, understandably. I mean, think about his day, Zosima's death, the monks fighting, Grushenka's house, Rakitin's betrayal, Grushenka's message. It's a lot. But eventually, around 1:30 or 2 a.m., exhaustion wins, and he falls asleep.
And then comes this really pivotal moment, the dream or vision.
Yes. Around 2 a.m., he has what's described as either a dream or a vision. He sees Father Zosima.
Not the body, but Zosima himself, like his spirit.
Precisely. Zosima appears to him not physically, but as a distinct presence, a soul communicating with him. And the message is one of profound comfort and reassurance. Zosima tells him, Alyosha, do not be troubled. I am with you, and I will always be with you.
That's incredibly powerful. More than just a dream, it sounds like a direct spiritual affirmation. A promise.
It absolutely feels that way. And it's not just passive comfort either. Zosima also reminds Alyosha about a task he'd been given before, urging him to focus on it, hinting that Alyosha has some great purpose in life. And Zosima promises to stay with him, suggesting this spiritual guidance will continue, helping him towards that purpose.
It feels like this vision is almost a direct response to everything Alyosha just went through, the grief, the disillusionment at the monastery, the messy, manipulative world outside.
I think that's a great way to put it. It's fascinating that this deeply spiritual vision comes right after he's been immersed in the most flawed, earthly, complicated aspects of people: jealousy, betrayal, manipulation, tangled desires. The vision acts like a spiritual anchor, doesn't it? Reaffirming his path amidst all that chaos.
And his reaction when he wakes up is just as significant.
It really is. He wakes up and the notes stress he knows it was a real vision, Zosima's soul speaking to him. He immediately goes outside, under the night sky. He kneels down and he kisses the ground. That act itself, kissing the earth, feels deeply symbolic: humility, connection, reverence. And then he starts to cry, intensely, weeping loudly, remembering Zosima, remembering the dream.
This sounds different from the quiet tears by the stone earlier.
Yes, it's described very differently. This crying feels like a purification of his soul. It's not just sorrow, it's a release, a cleansing. Maybe releasing the grief, yes, but also maybe the shock, the confusion from Grushenka's, the disappointment in the monks, Rakitin's betrayal, all of it. He cries for a long, long time, this profound emotional and spiritual outpouring under the open sky.
It's like the vision, combined with that physical act of kneeling, the crying, it washes away the negativity, reaffirms his spiritual core, and prepares him for whatever this task is.
That seems to be the effect. It's not happening in isolation. It's a direct counterpoint to the worldly messiness he just navigated. It gives him this crucial inner strength, a regrounding after being shaken. It feels like a moment of real transformation for him.
So while Alyosha is having this profound internal experience, his brother Dmitri is on a completely different path, consumed by something much more, well, frantic and external.
Oh, completely different worlds at this point. While Alyosha and others might have been looking for Dmitri earlier, Dmitri is totally lost in his own crisis, utterly preoccupied.
And his focus, like Grushenka's earlier, is also on her, but his understanding of the situation is miles apart, isn't it?
Totally miles apart. Dmitri has tunnel vision. He's fixated on two things. One, stopping Grushenka from marrying his father, Fyodor, and two, desperately wanting to marry her himself. He sees marrying Grushenka as his only way to start a new life, escape his problems. His whole future hinges on her, in his mind.
And the biggest roadblock he sees.
Money. Just money. He is absolutely convinced that money is the only thing that will win Grushenka over and let him beat his father. He sees Fyodor as his main, maybe his only rival for her, and he assumes Grushenka is driven purely by wealth and only his father can offer enough. So he has to get money to compete. It's that simple and that desperate in his head.
So money becomes this obsession, the object of this frantic chase we see in this section.
Absolutely. He needs a lot. The notes say around 3,000 rubles, maybe more. Partly to pay off debts, especially this big, shameful debt he owes to Katerina. But mainly, it's the capital he thinks he needs to secure Grushenka, to offer the security he believes she wants and that his father represents.
But the huge irony is, Dmitri has no idea how to actually get money, does he?
Yeah.
Not legitimately.
The source material is very clear on that. He's a spender, not an earner. He knows how to live large when he has cash, but earning it. Through work, business, he's clueless. Totally out of his depth needing this kind of sum.
He feels entitled to it from his father, though, because of his mother's inheritance.
He absolutely does. He feels he has a moral right to a chunk of Fyodor's wealth, which originally came from Dmitri's mother. He sees it as his. But Fyodor, being Fyodor miserly, manipulative, enjoying tormenting his sons, absolutely refuses to give him a penny.
And he's also trapped because he can't possibly ask Katerina for more money.
No way. That door is firmly shut. He already owes her a lot from a previous messy situation, and the shame is huge. Plus, asking her for money now, when he intends to use it to run off with Grushenka, Katerina's rival, who Katerina also has complicated feelings about. I mean, it's completely impossible. Unthinkable.
So he's totally stuck. Needs money desperately, can't earn it, father won't give it, can't ask the person he owes. This desperation pushes him towards someone else, this older man, Samsonov.
Right. In his panic, he latches onto Samsonov. He's described as rich, elderly, maybe 70, 75, and significantly, he helped raise Grushenka after her parents died. Dmitri figures, okay, Samsonov cares about Grushenka, he's wealthy, maybe he'll lend me the money. It's a long shot, but he's desperate.
But even getting to see Samsonov isn't easy.
Not at all. Dmitri goes to Samsonov's big house. Samsonov clearly doesn't want to see him. Twice he tells his servant basically, get rid of him, tell him I'm not here, trying to avoid the whole thing.
But Dmitri pushes.
He has to. He persists, probably stresses how urgent it is, and crucially mentions it's about Grushenka and money. That combination finally gets Samsonov to agree to see him, but only downstairs in the main hall, keeping him at arm's length.
And Samsonov doesn't even meet him alone.
No. The notes mention Samsonov comes down with his strong young son beside him, meeting him in the hall with his son there. It feels like Samsonov is being cautious, maybe even a subtle show of force. Don't mess with me.
So under these slightly intimidating conditions, Dmitri makes his pitch.
He does. Lays it all out, needs the money, pays Katerina, starts a new life with Grushenka, and he offers his main asset, his land. Says Samsonov can have the land or mortgage it. He's got the papers right there. Just give him the 3,000 plus rubles. He's putting everything on the table.
And Samsonov, the savvy old businessman.
He flatly refuses, won't take the papers, won't lend the money directly. He's too smart for that. He tells Dmitri straight he doesn't want to get tangled up in the legal battles that would definitely happen with Fyodor over that land. Too messy, too costly. He wants no part of their family drama.
But he doesn't just send Dmitri away empty-handed. He offers a contact.
Yes, and this is where it gets quite telling. He gives Dmitri the name and address of another guy, someone known only by the nickname Hound. Samsonov tells Dmitri, go to this Hound, sell your land to him. He even mentions that Dmitri's own father, Fyodor, does business with this Hound.
Sending him to someone called Hound, who deals with Fyodor, that doesn't sound good.
Exactly. The implication is clear. Samsonov is saying Hound will buy your land because you're desperate and you'll sell it cheap. He's basically pointing Dmitri towards a predator, someone who profits from desperation, someone operating in the same shady circles as his own father. It's not helpful advice, it's cynical calculation.
And Dmitri's reaction to being sent to this Hound.
This is the truly painful part, the dramatic irony. Dmitri is overjoyed. He's incredibly grateful to Samsonov. He sees this contact, this suggestion, as the solution. The path to the money, the path to Grushenka. He thanks Samsonov profusely, completely blind to the cynicism, blind to the fact he's being sent to be fleeced.
He's just so focused on getting the money, he can't see the reality of how he's being told to get it or who he's dealing with.
Totally. And the source material hammers this home. Dmitri's completely, utterly unaware of what Grushenka's actually doing. Remember her plan with the officer? Dmitri is still fixated only on his father, Fyodor, as the rival. He doesn't see the officer as a threat at all.
Even though Grushenka actually showed him the letter from the officer earlier. The notes mention that.
Yes, that's the tragic depth of his blindness. She showed him the letter, but Dmitri, consumed by his own narrative, his father, the need for money to win Grushenka based on his assumption she only cares about wealth. He just dismissed it, didn't register as important. He was so wrapped up in his own anxieties and flawed assumptions about her, he literally couldn't see the truth right in front of him.
So this whole desperate quest for money from Samsonov, now heading towards this hound, it's all based on a completely wrong understanding of the actual situation with Grushenka at this exact moment.
Completely wrong. He's running full speed in the wrong direction, chasing a solution to a problem that, as he perceives it, beat Fyodor with money to win Grushenka, simply isn't the main event unfolding in her life right now. He is tragically out of sync.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? That question you raised earlier, how often our own preoccupations, our own assumptions just blind us to what's really going on with other people, or even with ourselves. Dmitry is such a powerful example of that. Okay, wow. Let's try and pull back and see the picture of what we've just explored here. We started with Father Zosima's death. And instead of reverence, we got this really raw display of human nature, jealousy, resentment, challenging the idea of sainthood right there in the monastery.
Then we followed Alyosha into that intense encounter with Grushenka, full of manipulation, deception, but also her incredible complexity, that mix of revenge, hurt, maybe love, moments of self-awareness, sympathy. It was a whirlwind.
Yeah, and immediately after that chaos, Alyosha has this deeply personal, purifying spiritual vision, almost like an antidote or a strengthening for what's ahead.
Exactly. And while that's happening, the focus flips entirely to Dmitri, who's on this frantic, desperate chase for money, completely oblivious to Grushenka's real plans because he's locked into his own rivalry with his father and his assumptions about her. It's like watching different characters live in different realities almost.
You really see these different forms of desperation playing out simultaneously, don't you? The monks clinging to their expectations or biases, Grushenka seeking this complicated vindication, Alyosha grappling with loss and seeking spiritual meaning, and Dmitri just desperately chasing this flawed solution based on his own blindness.
What's so powerful is how they're all driven by these incredibly different forces at the same time: grief, jealousy, manipulation, that tangled web of love and revenge for Grushenka, Alyosha's spiritual search, Dimitri's financial and romantic desperation. It just paints such a vivid picture of their multi-layered, often disconnected realities, even though their lives are so closely linked.
Exactly. And that leaves us with so many questions, right? What happens next? Does Dmitri actually find this hound? Does he get the money? And will it even matter now, given where Grushenka's head is at? What happens when Grushenka meets that officer? And Alyosha, how will that vision, that task, guide him now?
These events, they're definitely not just filler. They're crucial turning points. Zosima's death and its fallout, Grushenka's revelations, Dimitri's misguided quest. They expose the core motivations, the flaws, the complexities of these characters, and absolutely set the stage for the major conflicts and, well, the tragedies still to come, especially for Dmitri.
It really brings us back to that final thought for you, the listener, to maybe mull over. How often do our own deeply held expectations, our consuming desires, or maybe just our personal preoccupations create that kind of tunnel vision? How often do they stop us from seeing the reality of other people's lives or the true nature of what's actually happening right around us? Dimitri's story here is a powerful, if painful, illustration of that. And that wraps up this deep dive into the material you shared with us. We really hope unpacking these key moments and insights helps bring this complex part of the story into clearer focus for you.